Thank you all so much for being here. We're here today to show the legislators that the immigrant community is here. We're paying attention, that we matter. So to get us started, we're going to have Kyle Gomez open us up with GALEO Impact Fund about why we're here today. So.
Woo! Yeah!
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for coming to this press conference. My name is Kyle Gomez Lineweber. I'm with the GALEO Impact Fund. We are a member organization of GIRA, which is the Georgia Immigrant Rights Alliance. And we are a coalition of various organizations that are at the Capitol every week, many of us every day, fighting for the immigrant community. And we as GALEO are fighting for the Latino community at the Capitol. And we're here to specifically talk about 1105 today. 1105 is a very harmful piece of legislation for a number of reasons. We have concerns that it will perpetuate stereotypes about the Latino community, about the immigrant community, and we have concerns additionally that this legislation will actually make it harder for law enforcement to keep their communities safe. And not just appointed law enforcement, but elected law enforcement. This legislation is asking our counties, our 159 counties, to ignore their voters, to ignore their communities, and to do the bidding of extreme voices in our state. And I want to be very clear. We've all seen what happened in Athens, and it's a tragedy. What happened to Lake and Riley is a tragedy, and we all agree that that kind of tragedy is avoidable, and is avoidable with the right policy solutions. And attacking the immigrant community is not the right solution. The right solution is addressing the widespread global issue of violence against women, and that's what we need to be talking about. That's what we need to be addressing. And so we at GALEO, we at GIRA, we're going to be here. We've been here each step of the way fighting against HB 1105 that we'll continue to talk about. And we're going to keep being here. We're going to be at this, now that it's over at the Senate, we're going to be fighting it in the Senate. We're going to fight it each step of the way. And I just want to point out these boxes. You've seen these boxes. These are a petition that GIRA produced, and I believe 6,000 people have signed this petition. This represents the will and beliefs of at least 6,000 Georgians who say we can do better than this, and we owe it to each other as Georgians to do better. So I'm not going to keep standing up here talking, because we have some great people here to talk, including a student from University of Georgia, and we'll have a couple of legislators to speak. Andres is going to introduce our student. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Kyle. And then we mourn with the Athens community, and we're here for the immigrant community, but we also want to make sure we center the voices of the Athens community in this conversation. So up next we have Victor Montoya, who is a student at UGA, and he's here to share kind of his feelings and speak a little bit. So I'll go ahead and let him come up.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am a student at the University of Georgia. Good afternoon, everyone. I am a student at the University of Georgia, a Latino student at the University of Georgia. I stand before you today, firm in my belief that the bill proposed, House Bill 1105, allowing for the arrest of individuals on only probable cause of being undocumented, is a path we must not follow. While the tragic loss of a young life at the hands of an undocumented immigrant has left us all shaken in the Athens community, we cannot allow distress and anger to cloud our judgments. To single out an entire group of people on the actions of a few would be an injustice. Conflicting with the ideals of equality will be perceived as an act of discrimination. Let's not forget that the vast majority of immigrants, documented or undocumented, do not come with ill intentions. The vast majority of us come with the intention of working hard and seeking opportunities for ourselves and our families. This alone should show that our lives, documented or not, also play a role in constructing the American society we have today. Not to mention, the implementation of this policy would remove funding from police officers rather than support the actions to secure our safety. For example, when 287G was enacted in Gwinnett, $1.2 to $3.7 million were reallocated in a similar initiative when it should have gone to the pockets of law enforcement staff and operations to ensure the safety of all people regardless of immigration status. This policy would not only create additional fear and division in times of hardship, where everyone should be more united, but also mistrust, where certain communities may feel targeted and marginalized. History has shown us time and time again that such acts only create division, resentment, and ultimately greater insecurity for all. By passing this bill in response to tragedy, we also risk losing focus on the true issue at hand, the act of violence against another human being's life. The safety of all human souls in the Athens community should be considered. As I've stated before, the lives of everyone in this country, documented or not, are important for the construction of our society. No person is more or less likely to cause harm on another person's life based on immigration status alone. Hence, the more efficient and effective response would have been to ensure safety measures for every single person, regardless of immigration status in the Athens community, as immediate action, then eventually expand it to the rest of the state of Georgia. As a closing thought, I would like to provide an example of my personal favorite historical figure. During the War of the Pacific, the Peruvian Admiral Miguel Grau displayed a remarkable act of mercy, providing aid and shelter to shipwrecked Chilean sailors, his opponents in battle. Miguel Grau recognized that beyond the boundaries of nations and chaos of war, we are all human beings deserving of dignity and respect. His actions should serve as a reminder that even in our pursuit of justice and security, we should never lose sight of our shared humanity in the face of distress. Thank you, and may God bless the state of Georgia.
Thank you so much, Victor, for giving us that perspective. And now we would like to introduce Attorney Meredith Yun. She's going to give us some of the more intricate perspectives and consequences of this type of laws.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Meredith Yun. I am the Litigation Director at Asian Americans Advancing Justice Atlanta. I also spent 5 years representing immigrants detained by ICE and facing deportation. Advancing Justice is a nonprofit legal advocacy organization dedicated to protecting the civil rights of Asian American and other immigrant communities. House Bill 1105 is dangerous, discriminatory, and costly. Local police should not be forced to interpret and enforce complex federal immigration laws. This bill will invite error, separate families, and distort local law enforcement priorities. When I was representing immigrants who were detained by ICE during the Trump administration, we encountered many individuals who were turned over to ICE after being arrested in states like South Carolina, often for a misdemeanor or traffic violation. We heard many accounts from individuals who had good reason to believe they had been profiled because of their race, the color of their skin, or because they did not speak English well. In some cases, people were not sure why they had been arrested or what they were charged with before being handed over to ICE. Many of the individuals we were helping had deep and significant ties to the United States. In some cases, they had lived in the U.S. for many years, had spouses who were U.S. citizens, and children who were born in the United States. As a lawyer and as a human being, I don't think I can adequately convey the devastation of having to tell a person that their loved one is never coming home again. I cannot adequately convey the heartbreak of countless letters and drawings from children of all ages begging the immigration judge or the immigration officer to please not take their father or mother away from them. My heart goes out to the family of Lake and Riley. As a mother, I cannot imagine the pain of losing a child to an act of violence by another person. to the politicians who would exploit her death in order to punish an entire community because of the terrible alleged actions of one. I remind you of children like my daughter, whose father is a DACA recipient who would be endangered under HB 1105. I remind you that children like my daughter likely go to school with your children, sit next to each other in class or in church, or play on the same sports teams. I invite you to look any of these precious children in the eyes and tell them you support forcing the police to help ICE take their parents away. That their families and their futures are less important in your politics. The reality is that even if the proposals in HB 1105 had been law, they would not have prevented Laken Riley's tragic and unacceptable death. HB 1105 is discriminatory and will lead to increased racial profiling. The bill would require sheriffs to engage in additional enforcement targeting individuals they suspect to be foreign nationals. In the past, it has been reported that traffic stops have been used as an excuse to arrest people and check their immigration status, particularly in jurisdictions with formal agreements to collaborate with ICE under 287G or similar agreements, which HB 1105 would require. These incidents are fueled by the very same sort of false narratives being used to move HB 1105 forward, one that falsely ties immigrant communities to crime. Notwithstanding the politicization of individual cases, this stereotype is both harmful and untrue. In fact, studies repeatedly have shown that undocumented immigrants are substantially less likely to commit crimes than US-born citizens. Finally, HB 1105 is costly. Holding people in jails for longer than required is costly on both a human and financial level. By mandating sheriffs hold individuals an additional 48 hours or more for ICE, localities are forced to spend taxpayer dollars on a practice that some courts have found unconstitutional, and which opens them up to liability when ICE or local employees make mistakes. HB 1105 does not make our communities safer. Instead, it creates fear for immigrant communities and additional risks and burdens to law enforcement. We call on state leaders to reject these and all policies that fail to recognize immigrants as full and equal members of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is not the first time that we have faced these attacks on our community. I think a lot of politicians feel like they can win cheap, quick political points by attacking our immigrant community. But the difference between back then and now is that now we're here, we're advocating for our community and for our rights. And that's why we're here today. But one of those champions that has been there for our community for many, many years is Representative Pedro Marin. And I'm so excited to have him here come and talk about this bill and about the importance of our community. So.
Hey guys. Yes. Thank you. What a difference between a young person reading from their phone and an old guy have to print and bold letters and all that stuff. So bear with me. So here, during the last week of the legislative session, when Georgians are looking for solutions to challenges that we face as a state, we again focus our attention to legislation that has no value or merit. Now is the time to focus on improving our economy, not further damaging. Now is the time to give people hope, not to scapegoat and exclude communities. In examining the provisions within HB 1105, I need for you to join me in rejecting it because it's not an appropriate response our state should have on the issue of immigration. I strongly oppose this bill due to its lack of moral decency. Its sole purpose is to stigmatize and undermine specific communities of people who are different. We cannot, in good conscience, legislate intolerance. Every year, new bills are introduced, whatever is voting requirements, making English the official state language, racial profiling of undocumented immigrants, or some other measure that strips our state of its humanity and history as a cornerstone of the modern civil rights movement. It is easy to go back back home and claim how pro-American you are, as during every election cycle, members of the legislature seek to win re-election or ascend to high office by targeting minorities and immigrants. Since taking office in 2003, I have condemned this act in the strongest of terms. It is time to stop using minorities and immigrants as political pawns. It is nothing more than the continued representation of a flawed ideology predicated on fear of ignorance. On a final note, let me convey a message to you all. Latinos have contributed much to this country with our labor and minds. We have fought in wars and died defending the flag. We too are America, regardless of what you believe. Now I want to challenge elected officials to validate virtue, honor, and courage in the face of adversity. The real test of leadership isn't who divides, but who unites. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Marin. And then, we stand here together, showing the strength of our community. And also I want to remind again, these 6,000 signatures represent 6,000 community members that have said explicitly that they stand with the immigrant community and against this type of legislation. And then to close us off, we have someone who we're hoping is going to talk to a lot of our colleagues and really fight for our community like she always does. So I'll let Senator Jackson close us off here. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I stand here today with my colleagues, the advocates who are standing up for justice and who have made a clear and compelling explanation for why these bills are harmful. But I want to take a moment to speak about HB 301, which was a bill that was just yesterday rammed through the Public Safety Committee in the Senate, a bill that is still not publicly accessible for folks to read, that seeks to defund our local communities of any state dollars or any federal dollars that go through the state for being a so-called sanctuary city. These type of attacks in which money that supports our communities are tied to fundamentally makes us all at risk. And so I stand here today to continue to call on all people to stand against such horrible bills. I also want to be clear, especially on this day, that these bills don't just harm the immigrant community. This is a time where we all need to get together. If you are a person of color living in this great state of Georgia, you are at risk if this bill becomes law. You're at risk because a law enforcement officer, all they have to go on is the color of your skin to wonder and to guess. Are you from Haiti? Are you from Venezuela? Or are you born in the United States? They don't have a way of knowing. And so every one of us who is a person of color in this Georgia, we need to be standing with our friends from the immigrant community because we are all at risk. And some will say it's okay. They have 2 days to figure it all out. 2 days in detention with them figuring out whether or not you should be there or not, or 2 days that you're not at work, 2 days in which you're not with your children, 2 days that DFACS can come and take your children away. And so I just want to be clear, this is not just an immigrant issue. This is a Georgia issue, and we all need to be speaking out on behalf of all Georgians. With that, I'll turn it over to you.
And with that, we wrap up this press conference. Thank you all so much for coming out. We're here for all Georgians and to push legislation that will keep all of Georgia safer. These bills do not do that. And that's why we're going to continue to be here until the end of session and moving forward. Thank you.